That's that's a guy that needs to just take a breather. He actually did just pause and take a breath because the time situation, Eric, is becoming not acceptable, and I think he's realizing it.
I had the same problem as Anish. I was analyzing the position, and then all of a sudden his clock went down. He was analyzing it too. I've had concerns this entire match. These very sharp positions. You go down on the clock against Nepo. He keeps playing quickly. He finds pretty strong moves. Not the best moves always. He doesn't even look for that. But if
Yeah.
you try to play perfect against him, he punishes that just practically. And all of a sudden, it's just that's a third straight win for Jan. Um, maybe Giri has to again rethink some of the positions, but I like this position there. Even though it's
Yeah,
sharp, he's got to
I
be
did as
confident
well.
he can go toe to toe in positions that he's choosing. You need your confidence. Confidence is so key. But he has these moments. He takes like 30 to 60 seconds.
Hmm.
A couple of those moments occur when Nepomniachtchi's playing 5-10 seconds a move, consistently down a minute as a result. And when that happens, that's when Nepomniachtchi unleashes these sharp positions where then you actually have to take 30 to 60 seconds. But because you're down on the clock, it's too late.
Yeah, exactly. You just don't have time to handle the complicated position anymore. And what happens is Anish just he almost looks for the true answer in the position way too often. Whereas,
Oof.
oh,
Rook
look at
c6.
this.
This is a move I think a long-time second of Anish would play. Erwin Lamy, a strong Dutch grandmaster, loves to sack the exchange at any moment, and this looks like a great opportunity to do so. Objectively, fine for black. Practically, though, white has lots of compensation. We have an imbalance, but it's not the most fun imbalance for black. Black's up material. Often, Nepomniachtchi likes to sack, he likes to attack. Here, white's playing positionally, keeping the pieces on the board, probably keeping a knight on c4. Eventually wants to target c6 and the double c pawns. I'm not sure if knight a5 was a little too hasty. I guess it depends. You got to calculate knight c6 and the trades over here. But I like the energy behind that, right?
Yeah, you
Because
can
just
play knight c6 and just leave it there, right? Knight c6, even trade the queens here and just play this position with rook d1 or rook b1 because the knight on c6 is covering b8, it's covering d8. Those are the only two completely open files in the position, and that means that the black rooks are incredibly ineffective here.
they're very ineffective. The knight on c6 is worth a lot, covering the b file. And it's important to note this a4 pawn might go to a5, fixing this on a6. Maybe you place your bishop on f1. Long term, you just target this, keep a rook stuck on a8, and the value of white's pieces are favorable compared to black's. The rooks are passive. The rook can go to b7, bishop can go here. Uh, well, yeah, rook c7 is an idea. I think Nepo would be preparing knight c5, willing to sacrifice a pawn for exchanges. Black would love to trade off here because the two
Yeah.
rooks don't have steady squares. So even at the cost of a pawn, if you can free up your rooks, you look to do that. White's job, don't allow that whatsoever. Keep milking the position, improve your knight on f3, improve your bishop on g2, maintain the tension.
And that's why we see knight b8. If you play knight d4, knight f to d4 to try to support the knight, I think we're going to see the bishop exchange
Yeah,
for the knight on d4 rather than the knight taking on c6. Because if two knights disappear from this position, that's much different.
absolutely. So as white, I don't want to trade. I'm looking at knight b4. It looks funny. It frees up the c pawn. I might have to do that. That might be wrong, but I'd say knight b8 is just a great move by Nepomniachtchi
Yeah, I
because
was going to say you can play rook
it forces a
c1.
trade.
Yeah, you get a trade here, and the knight does not replace on c6. So now the black rooks are active. You could maybe trade the knights and play rook e6, sack the c pawn, and then activate your other rook with rook b8, for example.
Maybe bishop d8 here. If you play rook c5, try to find a way to get a second piece on there. Okay, rook b8. Anyways, sacking a pawn to get an easier play position for black makes so much sense. Anish is
Hmm.
still playing this well, but as I said, objectively, it wasn't a winning or really good piece sack. It was fine, was supposed to pose you when you sacrifice that exchange, it's to pose problems, make things uncomfortable for your opponent. And right now, Nepo's doing a really good job of saying, I can handle it.
Yeah, completely. White would almost want to play like bishop d5, knight c4, maybe pawn to e4, and just kind of wedge all those pieces in the center of the board.
I
But
like it.
it's not that easy to accomplish, and I constantly find myself looking at the move rook b5 and just trying to evaluate that properly.
Yeah, if you give me some time as black, I want rook b5. There's back rank issues, so maybe I want to play g6, h5, put my king on a dark square, king g7. The a5 pawn does a good job of keeping a6, but it's on a dark square, so the rook always has to maintain coverage of it. Okay, rook here. I wonder if you can get away with playing bishop f1 and placing a rook on d5 and finding some stability there.
Yep.
It's tough to say, but even in a hard position, black is up a minute.
Yep.
You know, usually when you sack the exchange, you want to be up on the clock. You want to be the one saying, I have the easier to play position.
Yeah, the knight can also swing knight c4, knight e5, knight c6. And
Rook
here's the rook
e5,
d5 move that you were talking about.
got to keep the pieces on the board. Rook d5, and you have to play that quickly.
Yeah, it's a must. It's a must do. Taking. Okay.
Okay, so taking
He's
is
going for the full
fine,
draw.
indicates that
Yeah.
he's not playing for a win.
Right.
And the only thing you can afford is to lose this game because you're choosing to go in an endgame. You're like, yeah, this should be fine. It wasn't forced. But you
Yeah, I
don't want
thought
to move
rook
this knight.
d5 was reasonable.
You gotta be careful moving this knight. There's a bishop e1 idea catching you from behind.
King f1 just as a starter move, and then shuffle the opposite bishops.
Probably g6 at some point. Bring the king to f6, play g5, try to destabilize this knight. Black's winning idea is to find a way to overwhelm the f2 pawn. Easier said than done, but you're not going to win by trading off all the pawns. That's not how you win up the exchange. You need to maintain some pawns and try to win the base, which is f2.
Okay, finally we see a knight move. It basically couldn't move previously, but the pieces are going to get bothered here. I'm expecting rook d2 to get played at some point.
Yeah, rook d2. The thing is, white bishop has quite a few squares that you can attack the bishop. It can maintain the diagonal, and there's no way to cut off all those squares. You also don't want to place your king on f3 in some positions because you might get checkmated. You got to be very careful. You'd love to walk your king in and win f2 or mate, but some concerns there.
And also, the knight is being placed on e2 by Anish on purpose. He wants to take control of the move pawn f5 to f4.
Absolutely, and it's important to note knight's on e2 and you have a light squared bishop. Black has a rook. A rook on its own without this dark squared bishop can't overwhelm those pieces. So white is playing on the light squares, recognizing that the rook can't separate the bishop and the knight, and you have the king as an additional defender. This dark squared bishop, not in the game right now, and it's not easy for it to make an impact. If you can't get that bishop in the game, you can't play this for a win.
Yep. And if, if king e4 were to happen here because there's no bishop d5 or anything, just remember, as soon as the king goes to f3, suddenly there is that check.
So this is very good handling by Giri, not changing the setup, recognizing this setup holds the game. Well, as soon as I say that, he played bishop e6. and now Nepomniachtchi plays rook c2 to take away temporarily that bishop from the diagonal. But these are just harassing moves from Giri, just shuffling, moving around, keeping the king honest on g6. But as the setup from Giri looks good to me, Aman.
Yeah, it does look good. The knight on e2 and realizing that he has it under control. Having said that, he changes everything, which, I'm not sure he had to do that, although maybe he's just found another fortress.
Again, I prefer the other setup because what I
Yeah.
said is black's dark squared bishop wasn't in the game. All of a sudden, when you trade the e-pawn, this bishop, this dark squared bishop, could put a little bit of pressure on f2. I don't think it's enough. I think this is still a draw, but Jan will try to play a few more moves here and pressure. But this setup, knight on h3, bishop on f3, maybe everything's all protected. There's no entry squares. Again, though,
Yeah, and
psychologically, this is a case. Nepomniachtchi's won 3 games in a row, and with black, he's the one tickling. He's the one pressuring. It's most likely going to be a draw. That's a good
yeah,
result. That's a good
it
result
is.
for Nepomniachtchi.
And the game is also taking an incredibly long time, right? This is basically a 5+1 game that I'm sure has now taken more than like 10, 12 minutes. Like, and it's still going with no end in sight.
Yeah. No, might as well. Might as well. Like when you sack the exchange that like Anish did, you do that to play for a win. And now you're here shuffling for a few minutes. And sometimes those thoughts creep up like
Time is getting
this
low,
isn't what
Eric,
I
and I'm seeing bishop b6 and king e1, so he's going to change the position again.
Okay. Still a draw, but the setup is no longer solid.
No.
Everything's traded off. It's opening up.
Yeah, you can't say that this is just easy anymore. Like, you can't just shuffle pieces. Suddenly you're
No, there's
playing a
rook
pretty
a2
open
if you
game.
take here, and then there's bishop g3. Good find. King takes f4. There's knight e6. So
Yeah.
good catch by Anish there. Again, if you trade everything off, bishop and pawn versus rook, that's a draw. Bishop a5, planning bishop e1 check. If you move the knight, you lose your bishop.
He's finding something.
Oh, he's
It's
finding
very
something.
difficult to
This was
react to.
almost a mating net. Not quite. Maybe Oh, there's something wrong here, Amon. There's something wrong
Amazingly,
here.
it's
Can you
a table-based
put that
win is
king in
being
a
called for.
mating net? This king on h3 is not comfortable.
No.
We're getting close to a mating net here.
I mean, this is a well-earned victory. Remember,
King
Anish
h5.
decided to play for draw only earlier in the game, and if he's not
Move the
earning
bishop.
it,
Move the
that
bishop.
decision is going to haunt him.
White can hardly move. You can only shuffle the bishop back and forth. Try to get the rook on the h file.
Mm-hmm.
Get the rook on the h file, Mon. Oh my goodness. That's going to be it. You get
What
the
do you
rook to
do
the
about
h
this?
file and you play king g5 and you just win this knight.
I don't see anything.
You just win the knight. This is wow.